I was looking back at my notes when we talked for the first time, just about your experience before you got married, and I was reminding myself that you had about 4 years, right, that you were dating.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I'm wondering if that was different, if your experience was any different from like you saw friends or other family experiencing, or how would you say your experience was related to kind of other people's? Was it pretty similar? Was it very different? Or
I think it was, well, for me, I saw a lot of relationships in the military. So I saw a lot of either rock solid ones or a lot of
Casual things.
not necessarily just casual, because by the time they're married, it's a little more serious. So a lot of like really hard, like flaming catastrophes of relationships or some really, really, really good ones. So that's ours was really, really good, and we didn't really rush anything, obviously. So we were doing pretty good, I think.
Yeah. I tried to base my relationship and like the timing and everything off my sisters because I know Colleen's my oldest sister, and she's been married. How many years has it been? 11? 11 years?
I don't know.
She got married in 2009. Yeah, so around 11 years, 12 years. So I mean, I think that's a pretty successful marriage. And then my sister's been married for 2 years. So, I mean, nothing's going wrong with hers. So I was just trying to follow the steps that they took.
so like when they were dating, was it pretty similar to what you experienced then? You tried to
Yeah.
uh,
So we dated, Sal and I dated for 3 years and then got engaged. So Selena dated my middle sister dated her husband for 5 years and then got engaged. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't like too short. Like I would think like a year would be too short for me.
hmm.
And then I also wanted a longer engagement so I could settle into it. So like, I mean, a year is not too long, but it still is not rushing it.
Yeah. And how is that compared to kind of friends' experience that you've seen so far?
Um,
We're
we don't really have any friends that are married. Like
we have I'm
besides my sister and another, like maybe another couple.
Melanie.
Yeah.
Tiara is about to be married. We're kind of like the spearhead in our, not the first. Selena and Alex are definitely like the first in our group of friends. Her
My
sister and my brother-in-law. But they were like high school sweethearts, so they were always kind of like,
They had a
the
head start.
lovebird. Yeah, they had that lovebird kind of head start.
Ah,
Um, yeah, very good for them. They're good. They're good people. But so we're kind of all the newer, I guess, going into that in this chapter of our lives.
But I did notice that our generation is definitely waiting to get married like a longer time. Like
Hmm.
instead of getting married early 20s, it's more like mid to late 20s.
right. Or
At
even
least in
later.
our circle. Yeah, in our circle of friends.
Well, and even probably the broader community, because I've noticed that like with my nieces and nephews, that's definitely how that's going for them too. It's much later. Yeah. So good. Well, I guess I'll move on to my other questions related more to the sermon then. If you, I guess you had a chance to look at them, so maybe you have a few things that you're thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm wondering about related to your faith journey. But if you don't want to talk about that, that's totally fine. But the first question and the first two questions are pretty similar, right? But specifically about the part dating, first time, and then the other one, more the engagement time. So, would you say that during your time of dating, that your faith beliefs affected that time at all, made a difference in your experience? And whether it did or didn't, if you can kind of explain whatever your answer is.
You want to start?
Yeah, sure. So we both grew up in like Christian kind of households. So I think that gives into like a lot of the similar beliefs, similar morals, and um, because of that upbringing, I think we were both serious about the dating. Like we both weren't like going around looking for just someone to fill up our time and make us feel less lonely. Where I told her from the beginning, like, I'm dating you to see if like you're good marriage material. I'm not just dating to date you. I'm dating to see if this is something we could do, long term. And I didn't like I said, I didn't really like look for like other people. I was like really like comfortable in like being single as much as you could be, I guess.
Mm,
Um, but I think that also was like a big part of like I had a lot of faith that something's gonna happen because uh, that's just the way I believed in it. And but that gave me a lot of security and confidence and not having to, I guess, uh, fall into that kind of loneliness that a lot of people might.
And then I was looking for, somebody who met my standards, and the standards were set by my parents, and they taught me what to look for. My dad taught me what to look for because he's Christian, and I wanted somebody who cared about me like he cares about my mom.
mm,
So I was looking for someone religiously minded, Christian minded, because I know my family would appreciate that. And then I know that Christianity gives good morals to people generally. So I thought that there'd be like a safety in that. Like, they're good, not, but there's a high chance they're a good person.
yeah. Great. So you kind of were on the same path. You were looking for the same things a little bit as you
Yeah.
came into the dating relationship. And would you say kind of from the beginning, Sal, that you were pretty upfront about that you're really looking to find someone who you could settle down with? I mean, was that pretty quick into your relationship that you mentioned that would you say?
That's what I have said that
You said it the first day.
first day.
Like right as he asked me to be his girlfriend, he was like, I'm
Aw.
looking for somebody to get married to.
Aw. All right. Well, that's good. That's good advice, a good start for other people watching this.
Yeah.
So then my second question is, as you were decided to get engaged and went through that experience because you were engaged for about a year, was it
Yeah.
Mhm.
A little bit under a year.
a little bit under a year? So would you say your faith beliefs affected that decision that you made for yourself, and why or why not?
I don't think it was as big a concern for both of us. We're at that point where like she's my best friend and she was my best friend then, and she was like even when we started dating, she was really, really good friend in that. So by that point, like a lot of the stuff had already been figured out, I guess. Not necessarily entirely, but like we kind of figured like, hey, we love each other, we want to be with each other. So it wasn't as like it wasn't something we were concerned about because I feel like it was already,
Sorted.
yeah, it had already been sorted
I
out.
mean, it worked out. Like it wasn't completely out of the question. Like I don't know how well I would mix with somebody of a different religion, just because one, the cultural difference is huge, and two, my family is already set in the Christian pathway.
Mhm. So you'd kind of gone through that when you were dating and
Mhm.
you decided to take that step to marriage. It was not much of a leap because you had taken time in the dating time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's helpful to hear too. I know some people get married quickly. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories from couples, older couples of the church, but there's definitely something to be said for taking your time, especially when you're younger, to
Mhm.
and this, I think this day and age when there's people are trying to figure out career and how to help take care of each other financially, that sort of thing. So then my last question then was, as you think about other people your age or at least going through this stage of life, what advice would you give them having gone through this just recently, dating and engagement? Not so much marriage, but if you can think more about the dating engagement part, what advice would you give to others?
I would say make sure, well, for me, it's important that you have to be a friend to the person that you want to date. Because by being a friend, you're kind of like screening them out. You know the kind of person they are. You don't know everything about them, but you know the general way that they act. Like you'll be able to see them in adversity and then what they're like when they're happy. And if you get along, your senses of humor are the same.
Mm,
And then you also have to know yourself and what you want, because if you don't know that, you can't tell the other person, communicate what you're expecting from them.
yeah, I like that point that you need to know your own, who you are first, right? That's great.
I think she kind of stole it all right there because the friendship thing is definitely like a big part. I always think that like, I married my best friend, which is really awesome. And I think that regardless of how relationships go or how they go, fostering that kind of a relationship with your significant other is extremely important.